Hey everyone, it is Uncork with Kate, and in this video we are focusing on Australia and pairing some wines with delicious food. I wanted to focus mainly on the Barossa Valley. It's very well known in South Australia for the Syrah grape. I chose 4 different wines at 4 different price points that were Shiraz grapes, and I also decided to go with a Merlot and a Cabernet Sauvignon that was all from the Barossa Valley, just to kind of mix it up a little bit. I paired them with rosemary and garlic crusted lamb chop and a white bean puree. The lamb and the navy bean come directly from Australia. You can see my simple, easy ingredients right here, and I'll even give you a hint as to my secret ingredient that made this dish over the top. I started out with the rosemary, gave it a bit of a rough chop, and then I even ground in some garlic and a little bit of olive oil and some salt to kind of make my crustiness. And I coated both sides of the lamb chop, all 4 of them, and then set them aside to let the flavors meld together. For the white bean puree, I put a saute pan on high, melted a little bit of butter, dropped in some sliced shallots, some rough chopped garlic, and I threw in an extra sprig of rosemary just to give it some added flavor. Let it saute and kind of soften up. And once I was ready, I took the rosemary out because it's not, doesn't grind up very well. I added about a can of navy beans that were rinsed and cleaned up, and I started sauteing them. Put them on the back burner to keep the saute going while I moved on to the lamb chops. Just put them in a pan with a little bit of olive oil over high heat. Drizzle a little bit of balsamic vinegar over it. Left them for about 3.5 minutes each side. While that was finishing up, I went back to my white beans, put them in the blender for a couple of seconds just to get it ground down to a puree. To plate this masterpiece, I started out with the white bean puree, then I placed the lamb chops on top, and here is my secret ingredient, potato crunchies. All I did was ground down some potato chips. These specifically are rosemary and balsamic vinegar. Put a little squirt of balsamic glaze on the side to make it all pretty. And I am ready to do my pairing. The first Shiraz we are trying is Martin's Pickup. It's got a cute label and runs about $7, so it's on a lower price point. The bouquet smelled like blackberry jam. When we poured it, it had kind of a blue tint, almost pale purple. It had high acidity and medium tannins and medium alcohol. It was light-bodied. It had a short finish, but when paired with a lamb, it was delectable. The second Shiraz we tried is Milton Park. It runs about $13, and it also had a high acidity to it and medium tannins, but this one had higher alcohol. It was 14.5%. It was pale and medium purple, and it had more of a medium finish, and this one was probably my favorite overall. I think it paired extremely well with the lamb. The next red wine we tried was Shotfire Shiraz. This one was at a little bit of a higher price point at $22. I noticed instantly that the bouquet had a scent of tobacco and plum and leather, so it seemed to have aged more. It also had high acidity and higher tannins. It had a high alcohol level, but this one was more complex with many different layers. On a whim, I picked up this bottle of Lindemann Shiraz. It runs about $4. I did not have high expectations for it at all, but figured it would be fun to try, so I went ahead and bought it. The bouquet smelled of cherries. It had a higher alcohol content at 14.5, and it had a high acidity with not many layers and a very short finish, which is to be expected. It almost tasted watered down. But overall, I was surprised at how it paired well with the lamb. It really was not bad tasting. It's not something I'd buy every day, but it went very well with the lamb. Now we're switching it up to Merlot. This is Jacob's Creek Merlot. It had almost a blueberry scent to it with pale ruby and pale purple colors. It was on the lower end of alcohol content with 13.8, but it still had some pretty decent tannins to it. It was definitely light-bodied and had a short finish. I tend to like Merlot. I feel like it is a smooth grape, so I really enjoyed this one. Last pairing is a Cabernet from Oxford Landing. It was high in acidity, high to medium tannins. It had medium alcohol, but it was one of those heavy-bodied Cabernets. It had a medium finish and lots of layers. I'm not a huge fan of Cabernet, so this one wasn't my favorite. Final recap, the first wine we tried, Martin's Pickup Shiraz, was good. It paired well with the lamb. It had an excellent price point, but it wasn't my favorite. The second bottle we tried, Milton Park, was delicious. It was probably my favorite pairing of the night. The bigger, bolder Shotfire Shiraz, I was not a huge fan of, but that's me. I'm not a huge fan of the big, bold red. The Lindemans was not as bad as I expected. I still wouldn't bring it to somebody's house for a housewarming gift. The Merlot probably was my second favorite pairing with Jacob's Creek. I love a good Merlot. And finally, the Cabernet from Oxford Landing. If you like big, bold reds, you will love this one. Hope you learned a little bit about the Barossa Valley in South Australia as I did. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Leave me a comment about what is your favorite.